Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the F6P NFL DFS Kickoff Show. 2 days early. We have been recording the first 2 weeks on Thursday nights, dropping the show Friday morning. But, Joe Matz just is such an egomaniac. He just had to get in front of his fans at least one night this season. We still may end up going to live shows by when the time changes. We haven't decided, but if you're new, welcome. Each week, we give our favorite cash game DraftKings plays, DFS values, etc. Me and Joe are both huge stat nerds, so you will hear a lot of data probably in the next hour. Let's be honest, probably slightly more than the next hour if I know me and Joe. Let's start real quickly, though, before we get into the plays, and we won't take too much time, but really wild stuff on the passing numbers this year. Have you kind of seen, as the defenses continue to play the too high coverage at more and more of a high rate, the ADOT for, average depth of receiver targets continues to go down for a larger and larger portion of the league. We're at 72 touchdowns, which is wild considering we had 86 the year before, 105 the year before that, 110 the year before that. And it's really became a deal where if you are not – what's going on, Derek? Thanks for joining us, man. If you're not one of these running quarterbacks, it's tough, man. You look at the top 8 right now in fantasy, only Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield are not your real traditional running QBs. I'm talking about your Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Lamar, Daniels, Allen, and Richardson. Literally the guys that run the most, right? But even Baker has 55 yards and a touchdown this year.
That's true. His longest touchdown run of his career, a solid 11 yards, which even Baker was like, wow, that's not very far.
So that plays a big part in him being number one. Carr has a touchdown and another 11 yards, which, again, I know that doesn't seem like much, but that's a free 7 points.
Well, everyone else isn't scoring a touchdown on like 70% of their drives. So
that's a very fair point. Also only throwing it like 15 times a game. It is wild, though, that I think maybe we should start considering spending down at QB in DFS if it's not one of these running quarterbacks. Now, again, if you're going to pay up and take the running quarterback, I get it. But outside of that, man, it's really tough right now. Patrick Mahomes passed for like 170 yards last week. It is crazy right now. Actually, running back is the position. And again, I know it's a very small sample size, but running back is the position that is feasting. We got 17 players at that position, averaging 14.4 points or more in PPR leagues through 2 weeks. The number for wide receivers is only like 8 more, which is insane. And there's only, I think, 4 guys at tight end averaging 10 points per game at PPR league. So, are there any adjustments you're making through 2 weeks, or are you just kind of come on, Keith, pump the brakes? It's a very small sample size. Let's not get carried away.
I think efficiency-wise, we've seen this play out the last few years. I know overall scoring peaked in the COVID season, which part of that was also just no fans. Offenses could hear everything that they needed to hear.
Yep.
But since then, it's not like it dropped off and then it's evened out efficiency-wise. I know things have continued to trend down because, to your point, more and more people are just going, hey, we're not going to get beat over the top. Gone are the days of 8 teams around the league being Pete Carroll acolytes, thinking they could recreate the Legion of Boom with lesser players,
right?
And playing cover 3 all the time. So, yeah,
Dan Quinn, you son of a bitch! That's what he tried. It didn't work so well.
No, it did not. And he was probably one of the more successful guys. So,
right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I do think I forget who did the reply tweet. But I know Ben Solak talked about how teams should run, like just run until someone stops you. And then someone else was like, well, yards per carry for running backs didn't change. It's to what you were just talking about. Quarterback runs have been like, that's been the key. That's what's making run games more efficient. It's what's making your fantasy teams more efficient is having those running quarterbacks. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's nothing brand new. We all knew running quarterbacks tend to have higher value or at least higher floors because, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, those guys are going to have some 400-yard, 4-touchdown game this season. And it's going to be awesome when you have that.
It's risky, though, right? Like right now, it's risky. If you're banking on that, I got some bad news for you.
Right. I mean, to your point, you're probably, if you're putting Patrick Mahomes in your lineup last week, you're thinking, it's the Bengals. It'll be a shootout. Obviously, maybe you're also thinking, Lou Anarumo's kind of been the defensive coordinator who has had the best read on Patrick Mahomes, so maybe don't do that. But if you were someone who threw him in, you're probably hoping like, this is a 31-27 shootout between two of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then it doesn't really turn out that way. And if, again, you're not getting any rushing yards. So, and Patrick Mahomes has 2 picks, which isn't normal, but still, even if you're adding 2 points because he's not going to throw picks all the time.
You'd expect him to throw for more than 170 yards.
Right.
Which is wild.
And obviously he's the exception in that still is like a way out of line game for him, where a lot of these other guys who don't run, and Mahomes runs more than some of these guys. I mean,
especially when it matters.
Your Brock Purdy, your Jared Goff, your Matt Stafford, those guys are going to have those 150, 170-yard games. And it's going to not just be like a one-off. I'm not saying it's going to happen all the time. They're good quarterbacks.
Yeah. No,
Godspeed to Matt Stafford with what he's working with now in L.A., where he's got half of his line gone and his 2 best receivers out. But, yeah, I think you're right.
Earning that paycheck.
Obviously there's going to be matchups where I'm still going to be like, fuck it, give me Burrow, give me Mahomes, give me whoever. But, yeah, I think in general, I'm going to look for those mid-tier, lower-tier guys. Maybe I don't care if they run. I'm still going to be looking at Baker or Geno. But, yeah, I don't really want to go above 6,500 for a lot of unless I'm getting Josh Allen.
So Derek's got a question, Joe, that I think is a fair one because I brought this up, and actually Mel Kiper really was the one that brought it up with Bryce Young. And I thought it was a very, for Mel Kiper, coherent, valid rant that, Bryce changed offenses, right?
Yeah, that's true.
He was a rookie, year 2, new offense, didn't play 1 snap in the preseason.
Probably a
mistake.
Just
the Panthers didn't do him any favors. You look at my boy Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury. He didn't play 1 snap in the preseason, looked awful week 1, much better week 2, but looked awful week 1.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it's conditioning, rust, game speed? But I do think that there's something to, kind of I think what Derek's getting at, that not playing in the preseason does kind of put you behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I think, and it's not just, that they don't play in the preseason. It's like general practice has gone down.
Yeah. Everybody's Julio Jones now,
I mean, the upside for the offenses is the defense, everyone practices hitting less. So I think tackling can often be pretty iffy in the first month of the season as teams kind of adjust to that again. But yeah, I think especially young, what you're talking about there, young quarterback switching offenses. I mean, any quarterback switching offenses, but I'd say even more so a guy coming off of an injury where now you're feeling out how your body is in the middle of week 1, or Bryce Young, you're trying to, you just learned a new offense because you're coming out of college last year, and now you're learning a new offense again. That's difficult. So, yeah, I think that fully comes into play. Obviously, you can install a new offense and it work well, as we're seeing in
New Orleans. Yeah. I think that's going pretty well.
It's the best offense in the league through 2 weeks, and the most optimistic Saints fan, I don't think, saw this coming because, I mean, it's Derek. We've seen Derek Carr play maybe at this level that one season with the Raiders. Where
I don't think
were
at this
hyping him.
level. I don't think he played.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he was that good then. And then Alvin Kamara looks like peak Alvin Kamara. Like Olave's not even had a blow up game, and they're averaging 3 points per game.
It reminds me of Shanahan early when he was an offensive coordinator, where he is just scheming guys wide open and just running circles.
Right, and of course,
coordinators.
And of course, where was Kubiak working the last, I think, 2 years? It's like he's in San Francisco. So
the DFS legend Chris Robin is in the chat. You tell Chris, if you're obviously you're listening, you send me a text. I'm happy to send you the link if you want to hop on with us. Chris, one of the amazing DFS contributors here at Fantasy Six Pack, and just the bottom of the barrel. I mean, what just an amazing piece of content. It's been around for forever. Love me some Chris and Beastie. Let's get into QBs because we could talk about this all freaking
That's true.
Day. You know how we are.
Let's talk about what's actually on the lineup.
I'm not gonna lie, QB's a tough position for me this week. There's only a few guys I'm looking at. I think running back is pretty easy for me this week. Tight end's pretty easy for me this week. It's going to be QB, wide receiver. But the only guy that's even remotely expensive that I'm considering, because again, I really am. I'm starting. I know it's only 2 weeks, but I am starting to wonder, like, do we just pump the brakes on spending on guys right this moment? Chris, you the man. For QBs, but Kyler Murray 6,900 versus Detroit. Yeah. I talked about last week. I know it didn't work out great. Baker had a great game, but I talked about over their last 7 games, the Lions were averaging 350 passing yards per game. He would have really not had a great game if not for, to your point, that 30-yard touchdown run. But Murray,
11-yard touchdown run.
11 yards. I'm sorry, but he had 30 yards and touchdowns. What I meant.
Yeah.
So he Matthew Berry is right now doing, I'm sure, a victory lap, well-deserved. Did you just lose me? Can you hear me?
No, I still
okay. I'm sorry. The sound came through weird. The Matthew Berry's guy that he had to have this year was Kyler Murray. He had a good first week for an average QB performance, and then he exploded last week. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. going, almost put up a 30-burger. The big thing for me, his floor is so high because for second straight game, 5 carries, 50 yards. That's just free points. It's just like what we talk about with running backs, catching passes. It's just free points in DK. 3 times as many points for rushing as passing. And again, the Lions allowed Baker Mayfield to rush for 30 yards last week. I know Baker didn't have the greatest passing game last week, but they only threw it 19 times. I think this Detroit team is going to score at will on Arizona because I still believe, I know the Rams looked rough last week, but to your point, basically no Kupp, no Puka, like their line's messed up, like not a fair fight. This Lions team is going to be angry coming off their loss to Tampa. I expect Goff, St. Brown, Williamson, the two-headed, monster backfield to get going. That's great for Kyler. That's great for other Cardinals if you want to put them in your lineup. But Kyler is really the only guy above 5,600 that I am considering this week because I do like 2 cheaper plays, and one of them you're going to think that I either need to be drug tested or checked into an insane asylum, and that's okay. I'll take the heat for that. But
so you said only 2 guys above 5,600?
One guy. He's the only guy.
He's the only guy. Then you have the 2 lower guys.
Yeah, yeah. I actually like in the lineups I've been building, going with the cheaper options. It just gives me a lot of guys I really like at running back, wide receiver, and tight end that are, a little bit more pricey, and actually spend up a little bit on a defense, which I kind of want to do this week. There's some real juicy matchups.
I mean, I'm definitely with you that if I'm spending up, it's for sure it's Kyler. I mean, the thing that we were waiting to see, because it didn't happen at all week 1, was like, all right, how long does it take for him and Marvin Harrison to figure it out? And probably should have guessed that guys with that much
not even 5 quarters,
quicker than maybe you'd think otherwise. But yeah, I was kind of upset with myself that I wasn't throwing Marvin Harrison into some lineups last week.
Yeah, that was dumb.
I thought that game would be a shootout.
That was such an easy pivot. We fucked that up. That's on us.
We did. I threw a bunch of Rams in the lineups, which probably should have given the O-line a little more concern, but also, obviously.
I think if Cup would have been healthy, it would have been fine.
Right.
I really
it would have been, he and Stafford would have been fine. But yeah, why wasn't I throwing more? I think I threw McBride into like one or two, but yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Throw Marvin Harrison in there. But yeah, the offense clicking again. The Rams are not a good defense. One of the main things that kept them afloat, no matter what, was that they had the best defensive player in the league the last 8 years.
Tough to lose Aaron Donald. Like that's a pretty big blow.
Truly irreplaceable. So yeah, Kyler looks awesome. Lions defense, I think it's always better than like when you look at the yardage totals, because when you have a good offense, other teams usually throw the ball a lot. Obviously, not necessarily the case last week, but they're 18th.
But Tampa was up, right? Like they were trying to. To me, it felt like they were trying to basically get, because they knew that Detroit's offense was just, waiting to get kind of humming.
And yeah, you look at just the over/under on this game; it's 51.5.
Hello,
the highest by 2 points, unsurprisingly. So yeah, you want players in this game. Obviously, Rams Cardinals had a high one last week. Sometimes it doesn't go exactly how you think, but it's also a Cardinals home game, which makes me think we're not headed for a weird, the Lions figure out the Cardinals offense, shut them down, and it's 27-10 Lions win. I think Cardinals home game, this team's fired up. They're feeling confident. I mean, their one loss, they put up 27-28 on Buffalo on the road.
Yeah, they hung tough, and Buffalo's look really good now, 2 weeks in a row.
And that was with Marvin Harrison doing nothing.
Right.
So, yeah, I think this team's obviously trending up. I think the Cardinals might be the team this year in daily fantasy, in that I think last week was entirely defensively the Rams just being ravaged on their offense.
Right.
The Cardinals are going to be the shootout team. So 100%, which makes Kyler a great play, until he might just be a play until he's like 7,500 plus.
I agree. I mean, bad defense, good offense. It's the dream scenario for DFS, because they can't, most weeks stop anybody. That's going to mean they're going to have to throw whatever. I'm sure you have somebody else that you really like before we get down into like the 5,500 range.
I mean, the other guy that, one of my things is early on, if something's working, wait for it to stop working before you bail.
Oh, you going with a little car here?
No, I'm going with my guy Baker.
Oh, Baker. Did you see the stat on I think it's blitzes, right? And he's playing one of the defenses that blitzes as much as any team in the NFL. So
I had not seen
I need to send you this stat. Go ahead though, Joe.
I mean, the main thing is, I know that Denver didn't give up. They haven't given up a ton of points this year. They've given up 39 points on the season. But they played a Chargers team that's just like, we're going to run the ball until you stop us, and no one stopped J.K. Dobbins. But that also runs clock, unless you're going full Dolphins last season and you're going warp speed running the ball. That's going to lower your scoring generally, even if you're dominating the game. And then, do they play the Chargers? I think I'm mixing up the Chargers or the Broncos and the Raiders.
You want me to give you the real quick?
Who did the Broncos play week 1? I'm feeling stupid now. I can't remember who they played week 1.
Oh, now you're going to make me feel stupid.
I know that they just played the Steelers, right?
They played Seattle then, I think, week 1.
Oh, you're right. They played Seattle. So they did okay against Seattle.
So here you go, Joe. I got the stat. I want to give it to you while I got it. So far he has been blitzed, thrown 23 passes. 1 pass has been off target. Denver so far this season is blitzing at a 57.4% rate. So to your point, Baker's hot. And if Denver doesn't change their normal plan from the first 2 weeks, they're going to be playing right into Baker's hand, who has been just torching the blitz thus far. So it does. He's one of those two that we talked about early in the season. Don't pay so much attention to the opponent rank, right? Like we definitely should be doing that.
They just played the Steelers, who scored 1 touchdown through 2 games. They're 2-0 because Mike Tomlin's a magician.
Yep.
But yeah, this is still a defense that I look at and go, Well, Patrick Surtain's great.
Yeah.
And what else is there? Again, going by DVOA, they're 27th. That's also their ranking in PFF coverage. So, again, that's keeping in mind that Patrick Surtain's one of the guys out there. And this is obviously not a team that runs through a single option. Mike Evans, tier 1. Chris Godwin, though, fully capable to have a blow-up game, as we saw last week. So,
what were they doing last year not playing him in the slot, seeing what we're seeing?
I do not know.
Okay.
It will never make sense to me because, maybe early on in a guy's career, you want to throw him out to the outside, see if he can do a little bit more. I know, like, early on, that's what people thought Justin Jefferson was going to be, like, a slot guy. And then, like, week 2, they're like, let's see what happens out here. And it was like, oh, he's the best, so it doesn't matter.
It's a very good decision.
But, like, 7 years into a guy's career, it's like, maybe we just stick with what works. But, yeah, you've got multiple options in this offense. It's an offense that has struggled to run the ball this season. It struggled to run the ball last season. There's not really a good reason to think they will suddenly figure it out and become a dominant run team. So, again, the only real downside is maybe this is just a total blowout. They go into a shell. But, they were blowing out Washington week 1.
Mm-hmm.
That game wasn't close, and He had a huge game. Because, again, they can't run. So
they cannot run. Literally can't run the ball. That's like, it's not with Rashad White at running back, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and, we'll see if maybe Bucky Irving puts a little more life into it. But, he hasn't been super efficient so far either.
Nope.
Just purely running the ball. 24th in PFF run blocking this season.
Baker's their best runner through 2 weeks, Joe. That's not a good sign.
There you go. So, I am riding with Baker until that stops being something that works well. I do think that, Carr could make sense too as well. That game is 49.5. That's the second highest over under. So there is potential value there. I think Kubiak's smart. I think this offense is legitimately good.
You're waiting for the clock to strike midnight a little bit.
Yeah, because like what Baker's doing, I'm like, I basically saw him do the same thing last year. Like, this makes sense. And then I'm like, Derek Carr offense averaging 43 points per game. Obviously, you could come down a lot from that and be fine. But yeah, I think this is an offense that wants to be very balanced. They are successful running the ball. So I'm not as much in on Carr as I am on Baker.
Very fair. I mean, let's not forget it was the Panthers and the Cowboys. They're front runners. When they get down, they will lay and show their belly. So, pump the brakes. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Sam Darnold, 5,500 versus Houston. I started to come around on this take the closer we got in the summer. I wish I did early in best ball drafts that, Kevin O'Connell may have quietly become the best passing game play caller designer in the NFL, because Darnold this season, QB 14, QB 4, each of the first 2 weeks on DK, averaging 18 points per game. What's most impressive, 24.5 pass attempts per game. So he hadn't even aired it out yet, still putting up good points. And then let's just go back to last year. Cousins, 8 starts in this offense, scored 17.5 points or more, 6 of 8, 19.9 points or more, and 5 of 8 was QB 13 or better, 6 of 8 games. Joshua Dobbs, he played some games for this Vikings team last year. He was QB 14 or better in 3 of his 5 starts in Minnesota. Nick Mullins, he also started some games. He was QB 11 or better in 3 or 4 of his starts in Minnesota last year, scoring 19 points or more in 3 or 4. This is a Vikings team that led the NFL in passing despite having 9 games played by Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins. Pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah.
And I just, in a dome, Jefferson's going to catch whatever. I kind of like what I'm seeing out of their other wide receivers. There's a chance Addison comes back this week. And I know Minnesota's defense has been very impressive the first couple of weeks. I think they're going to get torched by the Texans. Historically, when you blitz C.J. Stroud, you're going to have a bad time. and the Vikings blitz as much as any team in the league. That's very good for Sam Darnold and the Vikings offense. Because again, he's only thrown it 24.5 times per game. He hasn't thrown it more than 25 times in a game yet. I think he's going to eclipse that number this week. And whether you want to, spend up, stack him with Jefferson, or I kind of like taking the cheaper route of maybe if Addison's back, stacking him with him, or even Naylor, who's been very effective in the limited opportunities he got. But I like Darnold in a dome versus Houston. But there's one other play I'm going to get to after I'll let you talk about somebody else. People are going to think I've lost my mind, but I'm dead serious. So let's go.
I mean, yeah, I think you're dead right about the coaching there, because I just just splitting to the other side, talking general football, KOC and Brian Flores. Like,
how about that combo? Pretty good.
If they can remotely keep this going the entire season, what we've seen so far, obviously, I don't think they're going to go like 14-3. Well, I guess they won like 13 games.
Their KOC schedule won 13 games
year one, and that was back when it was Donatelli running the like worst defense in the fucking league.
Yep.
So the fact that now you've got Flores, who's just designing these exotic defenses that no one can figure out before the snap, that's an interesting team. I do think Sam Darnold is still going to do some Sam Darnold things, but, picks -2 points.
He threw a pick last week. He still scored 18 points. Yeah, like he got away with
it. That matters for real football. That doesn't matter too much for us, because it's not like they're going to bench him because J.J. McCarthy is out for the season.
Yep.
The guy I'm looking at in the not crazy low range, and again, it's kind of like if it works, don't go away from it. Geno Smith, 5,600.
My boy, you love some Geno, but I do too, and I love what I'm seeing from JSN.
He's only thrown 2 touchdowns. That's kind of the thing holding him back, and he still scored over 18 both weeks.
Yep.
Last week, I believe, if I'm remembering right, I saw there have been 5 300-yard games through the first 2 weeks, which again, to the point of, man, where has all the huge passing numbers gone?
Don't pay up for QB.
He had one of those against the Patriots. That's a good defense. Say what you will about all the Patriots are, so a surprise that they're good, or that they're okay.
No, they're good. They're competitive.
Defensively, there's no caveats. It's a good defense. Like, they were good last year, even as everything went to shit.
And got rid of Jared Mayo. Jared Mayo. Of my boy for the Falcons. I can't believe I said Jared Mayo. And, he's got
definitely still there.
Judon's got a sack in each game. And
right. And Christian Barmore got hurt, and it's still a good defense.
It's Pat's team. Something about Patriots.
Belichick never lost the drafting touch with defense. He lost it everywhere else, but
that's true.
The defense remained good. And again, Geno looked good. I got another guy too, learning a new offense, maybe a better offense. Shane Waldron was his OC the last couple of years, and was getting definitely some credit for bringing Geno back. And now it's like, well, Shane Waldron's in Chicago, and that thing looks like a freaking mess.
Doesn't look very good.
And then Geno gets maybe the best offensive coordinator in college football last year.
I think Washington. He was. I think it's safe to say.
It's like, if you watch those Washington games, they had 3,000-yard receivers. They're lighting it up. Geno's got DK, JSN, and, I think Lockett's lost a step, but now he gets to be the number 3 guy, really, because JSN, as we saw last week, is ready to go.
And Charbonnet is a legit pass-catching back, unlike Kenneth Walker. So that just adds even more to kind of Geno's weapons at his disposal.
Yeah. And obviously, I would probably like this game more if, Tua was out there, Tua was healthy, and we were preparing for a shootout potentially. But I still think, the best way to attack this Miami defense is through the air. Run defense grade through the first 2 weeks. Again, it's the first 2 weeks, but Miami, number 1 on PFF in run defense.
Hello.
Grade. Pass coverage, they're 30th. So that kind of gives you what you need to know there. That's the way you want to attack this defense. Geno's rolling. I think he's just going to get better. I think that JSN connection is going to be key throughout the season. So, yeah, I love the Seahawks team. I think you and I were both pretty high on them. And
plus 750 is my favorite future bet at plus 750 to win the division, which is looking like that bet is alive and well.
If the Niners keep dropping, man, which I hope that doesn't happen. I want all these guys to be healthy. But
all right,
Seattle's ready to roll.
I hope we don't lose all 112 of the people that are nice enough to view us right now. I swear to y'all, I have not smoked any crack tonight. I am of sane mind and body. I like Andy Dalton at 4,800 versus Vegas this week. Now, this is cash game, which is kind of crazy to say. I don't really like to play for MME. I do like it for cash because remember, Dave Eddy has been one of the greatest resources ever. I'm so thankful in the last year and a half to get to work with him and pick his brain that in cash game, one of the biggest golden rules is you want everybody to score 3 times their salary. And if you can get at least 3 times their salary, you're okay, right? Like you can survive.
Yeah.
You don't need much. We're talking about 14.2 points at 4,800. It's rare to ever get a QB under 5K on DraftKings. And you know me, I'm a freaking maniac. Let's go back and look at recent games for him. Last year, he started one game. He scored 23.8 points, throwing the ball 58 times. In 2022, and this was 2022 a weird year. He made 13 starts. The Red Rocket made 13 starts. So we have a 14-game sample size in basically the last 2 years. He scored double digits in 11 of those 14 games. And in those 14 games, guess what his point per game average is, Joe? 14.58 points, just above that 14.2 number. We know that Carolina's defense is absolute garbage. And again, the first game last year that Bryce missed, when he looked awful, Dalton came in and torched it up, man. This Raiders defense is good, but I think you're going to see Deontay Johnson have his best game of the year. I think you're going to see Adam Thielen have his best game of the year. Like Andy Dalton is very similar to Jacoby Brissett and some of these other guys are starting right now that they're not great. They're not even really above average, but they're a competent NFL quarterback with a ton of experience. And I just think he can easily get that 14.2 points, which is all I'm asking. If he gets to 20, man, now we're talking gravy. Let's freaking go for cash game single entries. But I stack him with the receiver that I'm going to talk about when we get to the wide receiver. And then, man, there are some running backs and wide receivers that I love this week and tight ends, and I can have them all by doing this. And we've seen with these QBs, it's a fucking crapshoot right now anyway. Why not roll the dice on the cheapest guy in a dome, versus a defense that, they've given up some points.
So I feel like the quickest argument against you that's going to come up is going to be, who do the Raiders have on their D-line? They got Christian Wilkins. They got
Max Crosby. Yeah.
All right. So I want to throw this at you real quick.
Yeah.
What do you think the Panthers pass blocking grade was as a team last year, like ranking wise on PFF? What do you think last season it was?
It was probably in the mid-20s.
It's 27. So they were awful. Bryce Young, terrible spot. Semi-washed Adam Thielen as his best receiver, bad O-line. Through the first 2 games, what do you think their ranking is pass blocking?
I'm going to guess because you're trying to make me look like a fool right now. 32nd.
They're 5th.
Really?
That's why Bryce Young is getting benched, because he is getting good protection.
God. Joe, you just gave life in my veins, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, they
Holy
completely
shit.
Like everyone keeps shitting on the Panthers, and let's be clear. The
They've
GM
done no
that was
favors.
in charge a year ago, he's fired. He's like the 5th highest guy in the Washington staff now. They went all in to fix the interior of the O-line because they knew we have a short quarterback. What did Drew Brees always have in New Orleans? He had elite guards.
Yep, that's true.
The worst guy in this line by grade right now is Okwonu, who of course was a top 10 pick a couple years back. He's playing
same GM
okay at left tackle. Everyone else is playing well. So the fact that Andy Dalton could come in, assuming this line isn't, flash in the pan through 2 weeks, I think they're at least solid. He's going to come in, solid O-line, obviously it's still not like skill guys you're going home, you're writing letters about. But again, Deontay Johnson did get added in. Thielen's now the number 2 guy. Andy Dalton is a guy used to being in this situation, as you mentioned earlier.
That's what I like is the experience. Like I'd be shocked. 11 of 14 of his last starts in just the last 2 years, at least double digits. And again, to Dave Eddy's rule, if he gets me 10, 11 points out of 14, 0.2, which is what he needs to be 3 times, I'm okay. And I can cash a lot of times if the other guys that I'm very confident in go off.
So I do like that play. One other guy that I throw out there just to consider.
Yeah, let's do it.
That same Geno. Caleb Williams is playing the Colts. The Colts are awful on defense.
Cover 3, baby.
Yeah, there's the team that's running cover 3 all the time. The team that, again, Malik Willis didn't have to do a lot in that game. But 12 of 14 for 122 and a touchdown with 41 yards on the ground it's low usage, but it is high efficiency.
He's getting ready for his revenge game this week versus his old foes in Tennessee.
I'm excited for that. And then obviously Stroud picked apart that defense with no trouble in week 1. So this Colts defense is awful.
Yep.
This could be a Caleb Williams get right game. If he doesn't at least look significantly, he and the whole offense don't look significantly better, then we're nearing like panic mode.
Yeah.
So
as somebody who said he was a generational talent, you're fucking right. We're going to be reaching panic time.
So yeah. So I think that's another, low end price wise play where it's like, hey, this defense sucks. Maybe he gets right. Maybe Anthony Richardson has an on game, and this turns into a surprisingly high scoring game. Obviously, this game could be 17-13.
The only reason I'll say that I don't like that is I didn't realize he's the same price as Geno. I would play Geno.
I would favor Geno as well. But
MME, I like where your head's at. Cash,
yeah, that's true. Cash,
Seattle.
Stick with Geno.
Like I'd rather
MME though. Yeah, the guy who hasn't scored 10 points in a game yet, and you're like,
I don't think he's gonna be high
this week. Yeah, so I think that's something to keep an eye on.
I love that. All right, running backs, which I do, man. Like very, very different than the wide receivers. I have all of 4 backs. Let's start with Devin Achane, 7K, okay. Seattle. Mostert is probably questionable at best for this game through 2 games. Who saw this usage coming for Achane? And I was high on Achane, but never in a million years did I think that he would have 32 rush attempts and 14 receptions through 2 games, 265 yards, 2 scores. He went from 17 touches week 1 and a game with Mostert, which I'd have been thrilled about if that's all he was getting week in and week out. I'd still be telling play Achane and a lot of matchups. But without Mostert, 29 touches week 2. He's seeing nearly a 20% target rate in the Dolphins passing game. He is arguably the best wide receiver on that team. And yes, I know they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Dude has had 14 targets and he has 14 receptions. Like he's one of the most efficient pass catching backs. I know it's a small sample size of all time from running backs. And this is a Seattle team giving up 4.5 receptions to running backs so far per game through their first 2. So this is a team that's free points, right? That's 4.5. Just take those points. And on the ground, they haven't been much better. 244 yards on 51 carries, a touchdown. And then the big thing to me is I know people are going to be a little leery because of Skylar Thompson. I think it only helps Achane because I think that Jonnu Smith, and Devin Achane are probably going to see a slightly higher target percentage than they have thus far. And for Achane, he's already seen a 20% target share. That is amazing. And to that point, Thompson threw 14 passes in relief last week. 4 of them went to Devin Achane. And I don't believe Achane played on the last possession. I can't confirm that, which was the last 3. But I don't remember seeing him out there on the last possession. If that's true, it was 4 of 11 went to him. I just think his floor, he needs, again, the 3 times rule, he needs 21 points. Obviously, he can bust a big one in the run game. Seattle has been known already this year to struggle with running backs. But, I mean, he's caught 7 passes each of the first 2 weeks. I think that's kind of his floor for receptions this week. That's 7 free points. And with Achane's athletic abilities, I'll take that all day and think that he can go for at least 20 again this week.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to push back on high volume A-chain in any week. So yeah, if Mostert is out, then yeah, I think this is you fire it up. If Mostert's in, I still like it.
I do too. It's I don't
think
like
all
it
the points
much.
you made are
I'm
good.
Yeah,
but I mean, to me, I mean, again, dropping down a little bit on my, if it's not broke, don't try and fix it.
Jordan Mason.
Well, number one would be Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason is the lock. He is in every.
This is the last discount week you're going to get.
Cash.
It's the last discount week you get.
Again, you're going in. Another skill guy gets hurt. Debo's out, so that frees up. That probably helps other players a little bit more than it helps Mason. But again, Debo does run the ball too, so you're kind of taking away the
defense is giving up almost 60, Joe. To running backs the first 2 weeks. I think it helps Mason more than anybody. They're going to lean on him.
And then playing a team that's down, 3 offensive line starters, their 2 best skill players. Well, Kyron Williams is really good.
And San Francisco needs this win, too, which is the other big part.
Yeah, that's true. Coming off of a loss.
Yep.
Also, historically, Shanahan is, if I'm remembering the weird hierarchy of
it is. He struggles with McVay. Or no, I thought he owns Arizona and actually struggles with McVay. Am I getting that confused?
I thought he destroyed McVay and then McVay destroyed Seattle or something like that. I could be wrong. Obviously, they did win that one conference championship that got the Rams their Super Bowl. But if I'm remembering right, that game was the exception.
Okay.
Regardless, though, with the current teams that they have, I think you got to feel super, super confident in.
Do you know what percentage of rush attempts Mason's getting right now for the 49ers? 98%.
Right?
Do you know what percentage of rushes he's getting inside the 10-yard line for the 49ers right now?
I'm going to say 100%. Well, Debo.
100%. So you got a guy getting 100%.
And Debo's gone, so that's not going to change.
Exactly.
Because that's the guy who's the competition.
I'm with you.
To me, he's number one. And then the other guy that I'm going to be using this combo.
One thing for you, pivot, because I just want let's finish Mason real quick. On the remember, this is a defense, and the Rams week 1, 2 different Lions running backs scored 17 points, Gibbs and Montgomery, and then Connor was running back 6 last week. Just on the ground, they have allowed 39 carries for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns, and I think this is the best pure runner that they faced yet in Jordan Mason and best pure run offense. And again, this is the last time you get him at a discount because he went up $600 from week 1 to week 2. He went up $1,000 from week 2 to week 3. Probably goes up at least another $1,000 with another 100-yard touchdown, 20-point performance, which he's done the first 2 weeks. I'm with you. He is the only guy. Well, actually, there's one other guy. And he's actually on his team. Lock him in. He's in all my lineups. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. The next back you were saying.
Well, the other, again, I mean, considering this was my week 1 play that took off, and then week 2 he just kept it going, is J.K. Dobbins. Now, the price has gotten to a point where it's you actually have to think about it now. Or before I was it's totally worth it. And he is playing the Steelers. Steelers are a good defense, so I don't want to say there's no concerns here. And again, if you're choosing between J.K. Dobbins and Jordan Mason, take the guy who's $200 cheaper in the obvious, you want this running back in your lineup situation. Because that Steelers run defense is good. But I want to see someone stop J.K. Dobbins behind 2 elite tackles, and the rest of the line's okay. And then in a Greg Roman run offense, I want to see someone stop him. The guy's average, he is doing the same stuff we saw A-Chain do last year. He's averaging
with even less
10 yards per carry.
Well, I was going to say, with even less, to me, what is so amazing, and you deserve so much credit because you've been on this since, let's be honest, we did our first look at week 1 a month or whenever they released the DK prices. And the first thing that you said to me was J.K. Dobbins. And I'm like, man, we are back, baby. You're talking about fucking
I was
J.K. Dobbins.
This might burn me again, but we're doing it.
He's only handling 45% of the
And that's
Chargers
the risk.
carries. Yeah, but I actually think it's the upside of it is
if they
we get
go more to him.
There you go.
Yeah.
Once if you get the game where he gets an extra, say, 5-6 carries with what he's doing, because only a 9% target share in the pass game as well. He's doing all this on so little to where if they just up and like they may need it more, right? Because kind of obviously an easy win last week, fairly easy win in week 1. I think this is going to be their toughest game. Yeah. Like I think it could actually go the opposite where if it's close, you see Dobbins get the most opportunities he has. And to your point, he's like first in breakaway run rate, juke rate, like all these categories.
I mean, yeah, again, this is a guy who's averaging just shy of 10 yards per carry.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, again,
it's not 2 knee surgeries.
20 whatever.
So happy for this guy, man. So happy.
Right. It's like we always say too, you got to get that. It's got to be a year plus. The first if you're still in that first calendar year back from an injury, you don't look right most of the time. I know that we've all gotten spoiled by guys coming back faster, but the reality is things have improved enough where catastrophic knee injuries now, instead of your career's over, you're never the same. It usually takes a year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now that he's fully healthy, and then just knock on all the wood, please, J.K. Dobbins. I somehow
I'm pulling for him as much as anything.
I don't have him in anything but best. Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't get him on any of my season-long leagues, and I'm so angry at myself about it. Me too. But yeah, I just want to see this guy succeed. So
I'm with you.
Keep it up, JK. I'm rooting for you. Whether I put you in my lineup or not, I'm rooting for you.
All right, two names in the 6K range, because part of me wanted to go Charbonnet, especially if Walker is out, but I'm pivoting. I'm a Tony Pollard truther again. The guy that I hyped up all last year, he's back. 6K versus Green Bay. And, we were all worried because I love Tajay Spears. Tony Pollard is the better back. He is the alpha back. He's seeing 65% of the snaps. He is handling 75% of the rush attempts. And then what to me is most impressive, and I would have never in a million years guessed with Tajay Spears, 19.4% target share in the passing game through 2 weeks. He scored over 13 points just the first 2 weeks in the receiving game, which, again, would have never guessed that. Scored 2 touchdowns, almost 200 total yards. And this is a Green Bay defense. Barkley was running back number 1, obviously week 1. Jonathan Taylor was RB9 week 2. And what I really like about this play is Packers starting Malik Willis in the Malik Willis Bowl, as we were joking about. I don't see Green Bay getting up big. And that's going to allow them to continue to run Pollard, and that is Green Bay's weakness. And I'd kind of be shocked if Pollard doesn't have 100 yards and a touchdown this week. I think 6K is extremely reasonable. I understand the upside of Charbonnet, especially coming off of last week, but I think Green Bay may be the worst run defense that we've seen this year, and Tony Pollard is running to the level that Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor are so far this year. If you just look at the metrics across the board, very similar. The Titans also have a good offensive line for run blocking. I really like Pollard at 6K. I think he's a real value this week at his price, especially with his involvement in the passing game.
Yeah, you're hurting my soul with all these stats. As again, like one of the guys I ended up in my auction draft, I got instead of J.K. Dobbins was Tajay Spears.
I got Tajay everywhere. Don't feel bad.
Horrific mistake. I still think Tajay will find something to do in this offense, but I also just don't think it's going to be a very good offense because Will Levis is just he's a maniac, and I love watching it because I don't care about the Titans at all. But it's not.
He's truly the poor man Josh Allen, like the old school Josh Allen before he became accurate and everything else.
So yeah, I think you're right that Charbonnet to me is like right there with him. I think both of those are interesting plays. One guy I think I've got to throw out there where it has not paid off the way that either of us was hoping thus far this season. But if it's going to, this is the week for it to happen, is Zamir White.
Yes, dude. My last name on my sheet for running back. We are so on the same wavelength, buddy.
Nothing has happened this year. It has not been good for us.
It's been rough for Zamir Truthers. It's been real rough.
He has 5 less carries than J.K. Dobbins and like 150 less yards. So that's not ideal. Again, I don't think I think the Raiders, they're gonna obviously they're scrappy, they're hardworking. They just beat the Ravens, and I think the fact that the Bengals and Ravens have this like eliminated like 90% of eliminator pools in 2 weeks is incredible. But
Joe, we're down to 5 teams. We have 34 in our Linglog confidence.
And it's like
2 weeks in, 5 teams are left. Real quickly, because Sir5, who is a loyal watcher, listener, asked, when I was going over A-Chain, I mentioned they've been real bad. So 51 carries on the ground versus Seattle so far this year, 244 yards and a touchdown. Plus, they're giving up 4.5 receptions per game to running backs in the passing game. So I think Seattle is actually a really bad defense, especially when you look at who they've played. I think A-Chain, this is one of those where I think a lot of people are going to fade them because of Thompson. And I'm not saying that Miami's offense is going to be great. I'm not saying Miami's going to win this game. I'm saying I think Devin A-Chain, particularly if Mostert is out, is going to feast.
Yeah, I think that is the big key there is if Mostert's out, obviously, they have other backs. They drafted the Tennessee back whose name I can't remember.
From 17 touches week 1 to 29 week 2 without Mostert. That is significant.
Yeah, I think, again, the only thing that held A-Chain back last year from being the greatest DFS player of all time was that Mostert was there and scoring the most touchdowns in the NFL. So, yeah, I think if he's not there, I'm with you. The hard part is finding the cheaper running back that you really believe in, because all the guys that we were playing at the cheaper running back spot are now in the 6K range. So I think that's where you find the struggle.
But Zamir White, to your point, Carolina thus far this season, just on the ground, 63 rush attempts for 384 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina, again, we were doing this all last season. We might have been doing it even the year before, was if you have a running back against Carolina, even if you're like me, where I think, and you presumably, where we like Andy Dalton to potentially make that game closer, I can't foresee Carolina just roasting the Raiders.
No, not in a million years. I want them down.
That's
and him chuck, so we can get to that 14.2 point number. That's all.
Especially in an MME lineup, I like that combination where you go Andy Dalton,
run back,
and Zamir White. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that one has some real play. And then one other guy I want to throw out there.
Sure.
I forgot to mention him. Jerome Ford at 5,800 for the Browns. If you've watched my New York Giants play,
yikes!
Stopping the run has it's been a struggle. Let's just say, Brian Robinson had a fucking field day last week. I don't.
So what happens when he doesn't get shot before the season starts, Joe? Is he runs?
Yeah, it helps. It helps not to have bullet holes in your body when you start the season. Word to Ricky Pearsall as well. But Robinson, obviously, he had no way to avoid that in a way that maybe Pearsall did. I'm victim blaming. This is bad. But Brian Robinson is healthy. He looked awesome against the Giants. Mm-hmm. The Giants heartbreakingly figured out how to stop Washington once they got in the red zone, and then still lost the game anyway. But man, that guy was running through some holes. The Giants do not seem to know how to contain the run at all. 17 carries for 133 yards. Remember, week 1 against Tampa, Todd Bowles always has his defense ready to plug the run game. 12 carries for 40 yards.
Yep.
So he ran for 93 more yards on 5 more carries. All right. Now you get Stefanski. He's so good at? What's his big calling card as an offensive play caller?
Starting rapist?
Killing it with the run designs.
Oh, killing it with the run design.
Hey, that year in Minnesota and when he had Baker, so he had a couple years where he wasn't starting rapists.
That's true.
But, I'm not a fan of the all sex offender. Well, not all sex offender, because I think they have a third quarterback that they carry. But I'm not a fan of the going all in on sex offenders at your quarterback spot, but I am very in on Kevin Stefanski designing the run game.
Yep.
I'm very out on my Giants stopping the run. So Jerome Ford, 5,800. Plus, I don't think the Giants are going to score a lot of points on this Cleveland defense. So that's another reason that they're going to be leaning on the run and not trying to lean on Deshaun Watson, because that is not doing anyone any good. So, yeah, Jerome Ford.
I like that. The wide receivers, we'll talk Nico in just a minute, because I want to the smash play. There's two of them for me at wide receiver. The first is Devontae Smith, 6,900 at New Orleans. AJ is gonna miss again this week.
Yeah, I think he's gonna miss next week too, because they have a bye week 5.
That would make sense.
I think they're sitting him through the bye.
They're also a team that didn't just run the ball when they could have finished off my Atlanta Falcons. Not known for doing the smartest things, but that was Devontae's first game without AJ Brown since he joined the Eagles last season. He saw 10 targets, caught 7 passes, 76 yards, touchdown, over 20 points, which again at 6,900, that's gravy. But what I like about this is over his last 10 regular season games with Hurts, without A.J. Brown. So obviously we got to go back to his rookie year before A.J. Brown was there. But including the performance versus Atlanta last week, in his last 9 games, his rookie season, over his last 10 games without A.J. Brown, 9.3 targets per game, over 6 receptions, 83 yards per game, 18 points per, 6 touchdowns. And oh, by the way, he's playing a Saints team that in the first 2 games, just the wide receivers, 29 receptions allowed for 362 yards. I love Devontae. I think the Saints are going to score as well. You're just, to me, at 6,900, you are getting a massive target share. Like I said, he's averaging 9 targets. First without A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts is a little bit more mature. Obviously, it's a quarterback. Devontae Smith has now been in the league. This is his 3rd year. Targets went up to 10. I actually think it's closer to 12, 13, because remember, they controlled that game in Atlanta to the very end. He still saw 10 targets, put up 20 points. Devontae, for me, is just an absolute smash in a dome. Love it.
I think you're 100% right on this. I think Devontae is legitimately number 1 wide receiver good. Maybe, he's not top 5 good like A.J. Brown is at his best. But this is a legitimate top 10, top 15 receiver. Assuming the Saints are going to still be scoring points. And this Eagles defense does not hit me as the defense that, at least, do they stop them from scoring 40? Probably, just because who wouldn't? Regression happens eventually.
Right.
Unless the Saints really are the 07 Patriots.
Or what was it? The Rams of 01 would be, to me, the more of because with Warner, they just kind of came out of nowhere.
The out of nowhere type thing.
Yeah.
I just remember I heard the stat, though, because if you go back to last season, week 18, they put up 40 on the Panthers. So they are the first team to score.
No, they put it up on us, because remember, they scored that.
Oh, it's the Falcons.
They scored that touchdown where we got a revenge game coming week 4.
And then we're like, oh, good.
I'm just going to give the ball to friggin' Williams because he's an asshole.
He deserves a touchdown.
And fuck Jameis.
Hey, but it got Arthur Smith fired. So there you go, buddy.
You know what? Thank you, Joe. I needed to hear that. I appreciate that, buddy. That's what good friends do.
So, yeah, but 3 straight games of 40-plus points, obviously across 2 seasons. So that makes it different. But the last team to do that was the 07 Patriots. Only 3 teams in NFL history have done that. So, and one of them was like the 40s Bears or something. So
Carr's shoulder was legit an issue last year. I think it's fair to say that now. Remember, he hurt his shoulder early in the year.
Yeah.
Was really bad in the middle. And then he got kind of better that last month. And, it's just funny how everybody was like, oh, he's done, when he didn't really even have a chance, even with a different offense last year, because he couldn't throw the ball more than like 10 yards.
So, yeah, I'm with you all the way that that's when you want to be locking in, because, obviously, there's other really good receivers above him, but
significantly more.
The price points are just, they're rough.
Mm-hmm.
And, Marvin Harrison's all the way up to 7,400 already.
Yep.
And I don't think that's a bad play, but
I think it's back to welcome to Dorchland. We'll talk about him in a few.
But so dropping below though, because I am with you 100%, Devontae. I like DJ Moore.
Yeah.
With the comeback. Again, I'm telling you, I'm saying the Indy defense, this is the get right type of situation.
It's trash.
It's awful. DJ, obviously, not the start we were hoping for now that he upgrades at quarterback. He's still getting double digits. It's barely, but he's gotten there. He has 18 targets over the first 2 games. That's 7th.
That's good.
7th in the NFL.
Yep.
He has 4 deep targets. That's tied for 4th in the NFL. His unrealized air yards is 139. That's 9th in the NFL.
He's putting up Kyle Pitts type numbers.
Yeah, right?
Minus the targets.
And obviously yes, that's true. He's always out there. Has not missed a snap where they have run a passing play. We go with our old trusty PFF wide receiver corner advantage. He has the 6th highest advantage.
Let's go through that because you bring that up. Let's go through the first 6 or 7 of them since you brought it up.
All right, so here's your Cardinals Lions is going to be a shootout. Number 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown against the Cardinals. Jamar Chase against Washington. Again, you just saw what Malik Neighbors did to Washington. There's a good reason Jamar Chase. Yep. Although I believe that's not on our slate, right?
Nope. That's not, unfortunately. 2 Monday night games, but I do love this.
No, that's right.
It's one of the rare, I think it's like 6 or 7 games at 1 and like 5 games at 4. Do this every week, NFL. Like, this is so easy.
Right. Split it up. We don't need to not have games we can't even catch on Red Zone. And then it's like you have 3 games to watch in the afternoon. You're like, 2 of these suck. What is this?
Yep.
But yeah, so Jamar Chase, obviously, if you're playing any sort of Monday night thing, just pay the money. Just especially T. Higgins is not out there or is limited. Pay the money.
Pay the man that money. He check all night.
They can stop Daniel Jones throwing to a rookie in his 2nd game. They're not going to stop Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase.
Very good point.
Nico Collins against Minnesota.
Hello.
Again, assuming Nico's all the way healthy. Chris Olave against the Eagles. Ooh. So maybe this is the Chris Olave finally has the huge game because he's just been okay while the rest of the team's been scoring 1 million points. Amari Cooper against my Giants. That's not shocking. And then we get to DJ Moore. And then you're kind of like, ooh, this is a little under the radar here. Khalif Raymond against the Cardinals.
Wow.
So a lot of options across the board in that Cardinals Lions game is what we'll say there is.
So where is Williams?
High end guys. I'm guessing he is not grading that well for some reason. Or let's see, because he's
you know what I say, top. F them grades just like I did my grades in high school. So
he has a 61 advantage, which they put in the average category.
Okay,
but it's it's nearing the good category because I think 65 or above is good. So it's not like
people are learning.
They're not saying
what he
stay
does
away from
after he gets the ball is to me what makes Williams elite.
Yeah, I think that's part of the thing is if you're grading everything beforehand, he's fine. And then once he has the ball, it's like, oh crap, this is the fastest man. Then every DB turns into Seth Rogen.
Exactly.
Super bad. This is the fastest kid alive. So yeah. You're into the end zone. So yeah.
All right, so you got DJ, and if you do that, do you want to stack them? Like if you're going to play DJ, do you think you have to play Williams or no?
I don't think you have to, but I think if you're doing Williams, I think you have to do DJ. Okay. I think that's something you have to do because obviously there's other Keenan Allen, Odunze, there's other options, but it would be very surprising to me if Caleb Williams' first big game does not heavily involve DJ Moore, where DJ Moore could end up having a Malik Neighbors type game,
right?
Where he just dominates. And then you're like, oh, Caleb was fine. He had a pretty good game.
Yep, I believe that. Let's not spend time on Nico, but I just want to mention 7,300 at Minnesota. I think this was rest. This popped up out of nowhere. I've already seen several, Houston reporters saying he's going to play. They expect him to play Sunday. He's got 52 yards more than any other wide receiver right now through 2 games. He's seeing awesome. A 28% target rate. That's 10% higher than either Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs. And people were questioning who the alpha was going to be. And the big thing, and this is why I'll leave it here, Minnesota threw 2 games to wide receivers, 31 receptions, 356 yards, and a score. Nico at 7,100 is probably a steal. Let's talk about Jameson Williams, who I really want to talk about. My guy. There's 2 people that I am early in this season taking huge victory laps on. Obviously, you know, one of them is my boy Brock Bowers. The other is Jameson Williams, who he made me real scary, the last 2 years, because I kept saying best wide receiver in that class. And I'm watching Olave and Wilson and London, all these guys. I'm going, Keith, are you going to stick by this? And I said, yes, I am, because I'm stubborn. They cleared the wide receiver room for him. And lo and behold, my man is doing work. And it just took opportunity. 9 targets, 5 receptions week 1, 121 yards and a touchdown. They said, you know what? Let's give him a little bit more. 11 targets week 2, 5 receptions, 79 yards. Not as efficient, but the volume went up. What I like, still getting those rush attempts, had at least 1 rush attempt for 10 yards in both games. Through the 2 weeks, he's top 5 among wide receivers in targets, route participation, air yard share, receiving yards, yak, dominator rating. He's top 10 among route win rate, fantasy points per route run, juke rate, target premium, yards per route run, yards per reception, fantasy points per game, air yards. And I love these stats. He's facing a Cardinals D, 24 receptions for 329 yards and 2 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. They didn't have to play Puka or Kupp, and they've already given up 24 receptions for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, if you want to say St. Brown's the guy, I get that. I just think Williams is so much cheaper. He's getting basically the same volume, and he's more likely to, to break any playoff for a 50-yard touchdown or more. So I like him. I think this game is going to be a shootout. Originally, I was going to run McBride back in a lot of lineups with Williams. I'm going another direction because we'll talk about the tight end that he's going to be in every lineup, and it's not Brock Bowers, believe it or not. But I love Jameson Williams at 5,800 this week.
Yeah, again, very early, especially for a stat like this, but so far, deep passes, Cardinals defense, 27th in DVOA. Obviously, again, you're not dealing with a high number of deep passes.
Yeah, PFF ranked their secondary like dead last, didn't they, preseason of what they expected?
They did have them dead last going into the season. Let me see where they are in coverage grade. They are 31st, so they are ahead of Washington.
They're improving. How about them? They're moving up. Washington are good friends that we have picked on for 3 years now. Thank you for the gift that just keeps on giving.
Washington giving up 101 yards per game to wide receiver ones last year. They have brought that down to 98.5 through
working hard for it.
Season. That's second worst in the NFL to the Ravens.
How about that?
So yeah,
like Joseph. Give me somebody you like.
I don't have a matchup thing on this, but again, if I'm playing Geno, I'm all in on JSN. I know that week 1 scared me a little bit. I was like, oh no.
He's seeing a 6% higher target rate than DK Metcalf. That never in a million years I think that would happen at any stretch this season.
Oh, one of my things that I was kind of like, ooh, this would be if we'd had to make like predictions on like some stats and stuff. One of mine would have been JSN leads the team in receptions.
Wow. So, but targets too, because I could see receptions, but it's the target.
Well, I guess, yeah, because he has, you're right, because he's not running as many deep routes. He's more of a slot guy. It's going to be higher percentage throws. So, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if I would have been that ballsy to say he'd lead the team in targets. And he may not. Obviously, it's 2 weeks in.
I don't know. He looks like their best wide receiver, and I love DK Metcalf. I finally now get it. I was somebody that I didn't understand. People like you and Kevin Tompkins, a lot of people just tell me this guy's the real deal. I'm like, from what I've seen, I haven't seen it. These last 2 weeks, I see it. Like he's smooth. He's very fast. He's starting to catch everything. And to me, he's like the perfect wide receiver for this offense that they're running. You know what I mean? That they brought in. It's almost like they brought him, like the OC the head coach from Washington just to run, the OC from Washington just to, get JSN going. Almost it feels like.
Right. I feel like of all the receivers in that offense, he is by far the guy who got boosted the most by that hire. So yeah, I love that. I mean, the thing that I always came back to, because obviously, he didn't play much his last season in college, or did he play it at all? I can't remember if he got hurt before the season or like game 2.
It was real early, I think. It was like game 2.
Like incredibly early in the season. But it's like the year before he was playing with Garrett Wilson and Olave. And the general consensus
snaps.
was that he was the best receiver on that team.
That's nuts.
Now, there's, I think Garrett Wilson and Olave are better athletes than he is. So maybe I wouldn't necessarily say I'd project that to the NFL that he will overachieve those guys. But it's like if you are that good with those guys on your team, you will be a very good NFL.
Yeah, just for people to say that shows his skill level.
And they would say it too. I remember seeing like an interview with, I think it was Wilson, where he was like, yeah, he was the best of us. And you're just like, oh my God. And then of course, Marvin Harrison is like next. And you're just like, how do you guys not win every single game? How do you not beat Michigan, Ohio State?
Because they play Georgia. Do you like Shaheed?
Well, that too.
He's 5,300. Philly proved again last week with the Mooney catch. Yes. They give up big plays. I think he's going to be kind of high on, which is the only thing I don't love. But I feel like if he has another big game, much like Mason, this will be the last game that you can get him at a real value, and his price is going up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What we've seen with him so far in this offense, again, it's going way beyond what I was thinking the best case scenario was this early this season. And obviously, we're not projecting that like continues unabated, but you don't have to continue to be that good for his price to keep going up because, again, if you're averaging 18 points per game, you're among the best receivers in the NFL if that could remotely continue. So,
and you have to worry about this guy running a kicker punt return back, which for fantasy is just a potential bonus. That is right? True.
I really like this like 5,000 range when I'm going through it because, again, like obviously I'm concerned about the Rams offense against a team with a good defensive line, but it's like Demarcus Robinson's 5,000, Tyler Johnson's 4,700.
What about 200 more for Tank Dell? Like I feel like this is the perfect time to get on Dell. He's few games into the season. I've been really surprised. Like I was worried he was going to be the guy that really lost his, way. And I know by the numbers, fantasy points, that has been the case. But he's seen a 17% target share. Diggs is seeing 18. I know, obviously, Collins is getting that monster 28%.
Again, Collins it's hard to rank the receivers. There's so many good ones now.
Right. I agree.
He is 100% a top 10 wide receiver.
Yep.
And he's right up there for top 5. Like he is awesome.
Him and Stroud is just such a dangerous combo.
And the size that he has too, because that's the thing that sets him apart when you look at the other guys. It's like, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, they're not small guys. It's not like they're bad at the catch point. But they're not 6'4", right?
He's like Julio. That's who he reminds me a lot of. Julio. But he actually scores touchdowns, which Julio doesn't do on a regular basis. But he does remind me a lot of Julio.
I wanted Nico in all my leagues. I got him in one out of the 2 that I'm in. The other,
he was very expensive.
He was a keeper for someone else, so that stopped me. But in my one league, which is PPR, and it was snake draft, I got him coming around the turn at the start of round 3, and I was like, like thanking God. I was saying some Hail Marys in the lead up to that pick because I wanted him so bad.
So if you're gonna be crazy like me and play Dalton, Joe, you got to go Johnson, right? 4,900. To me, that's the pair, or do you think it's Thielen?
I'm going Johnson.
Me too.
I just think he's better.
Double digits in 9 of 10 games last year to end the season with Kenny Pickett. So, to your point, like
Andy Dalton's better than Kenny Pickett. So
that's what I'm saying. Like I just think 4,900. Remember, this guy, what did he start at? Like 58? Was he in the 6K range? Oh, wow.
No,
he was 5,300. He's been very reasonable.
Low 5s.
But now he's under 5K. I'm getting to stack. I think the clear number 1 wide receiver, I would think with Dalton, again, against a team that we know Vegas is going to get pressure. So that means that Johnson is probably going to be, his underneath is safety valve. And if I run that lineup, I'm getting those 2 guys for under 10K. And again, that's how I'm going to have Devontae Smith and Jordan Mason. And I'm going to have, A-Chain. And I built a lineup with 2 tight ends in. I'm going to talk about one of them you got to have in your lineup, and Jameson Williams. And it's like, without doing that, it gets really difficult for me to build my lineups this week for cash.
Yeah. I do wish we could give him Thielen's hands. That would be ideal.
Right?
Just so we could be sure that when he's wide open, he catches that pass. But again, I know this was a month ago. I wish I still had it right in front of me. But, ESPN has that tracking stuff where they, ranked receivers on, I think at the catch point, after the catch, and then just getting open. And it was like over the last 5 years, it was like 4 of the top 10 getting open scores was Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me the guy who gets open. I'll take the risk that he drops 1 or 2 passes.
What about Josh Downs if he plays this week, 4,700 versus Chicago? Because to me, that's what's missing for Anthony Richardson.
I really like Josh Downs. The one thing is I might have been wrong about Alec Pierce, and if Alec Pierce is going to continue to be a productive wide receiver,
they do different things, though, don't they?
They do different things, but I'm just saying, like, target share wise, you've got Pittman.
I think Pittman's in trouble if Downs ends up coming back and plays. Pittman seems like the worst wide receiver possible for what Richardson's skill set is, and I don't mean that as like Pittman's a really good wide receiver, but just what Richardson excels at. It ain't Pittman. Pittman needs an accurate quarterback who can throw balls, on spots. He's got strong hands. He catches everything. Good route.
Right, because Pittman is not the he just gives you a move and then he
doesn't create separation.
Busting down speed. Yeah. He is more of the we've got our timing down and we're just gonna move the ball downfield because the synergy is perfect. And that's obviously Anthony Richardson isn't like that with anyone right now. And it's probably not even going to be like that with him for at least a season or 2 with anyone. Because, again, it's a guy who's not throwing a lot of passes. He's got to develop these skills.
Didn't he play in high school or college? It's been crazy.
Yeah, I think he started 1 season in high school, 1 season in college. It's like.
Let's give one more wide receiver and move on. I do want to mention Jordan Whittington, 4,200 versus San Francisco. I understand you're in on Demarcus Robinson, those guys. If you look late in that game, he got in and he's electric, man. I'm starting to see why a lot of people overreacted to his preseason and training camp performances. But now with no Kupp, no Puka, in a game that I expect them to be down in, and he's the cheapest option. He's cheaper than Tutu, for God's sakes. I kind of like him. If I end up not going with that really cheap stack of Dalton, Johnson, and cash lineups and say play Murray, I like running it back with a Whittington, and then I could either play McBride or a Dortch or, even a Connor with them potentially.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Again, I'm all in on especially any combination of Cardinals, Lions. Just throw those guys in there. And to put in a higher price guy.
What did you say, Raymond? What is Raymond this week? Because you said that he had the 6th or 7th best ranking, right? Here, I'll look it up, Joe. I'm sorry.
He does. I was going to say, my problem is that he's 36. I got him there.
3,600. Wow. Yeah, that's.
And obviously, he has 3 receptions on 4 targets all last week, so maybe that's a sign he's trending up. And so obviously that grade's also not coming on a shit ton of snaps because it's week 2. But again, this Cardinals secondary is not good. The Lions are awesome on offense. I think the Cardinals are going to score plenty of points too. So
Cardinals are going to get no pressure versus that Detroit offensive line. They have one of the worst defensive lines in football, and Detroit has one of the best offensive lines. It's a huge mismatch, but that's great to your point for Arizona players. I do like Dortch is somebody too that just real quickly. His snap number plummeted week 2 from 61% to 39. I mean, come on. That was a game Cardinals were up very comfortably. They threw it 5 times the last 26 minutes of the game. So not really the kind of game script for Dortch. He still saw 2 targets, compared to obviously his 8 week 1. And again, what we're talking about, Lions are going to score points. that's good news for Dortch. And to me, if I play Murray, that's actually the stack I like because I think that it kind of it just takes some of the risk out of it because you're talking about 11-5. I think Dortch will get his. He'll get to his 3 times number and say Murray doesn't have a great game. I still got like $37,000, $38,000 to work with the rest of my lineup.
I do think Michael Wilson is a guy I would also.
That's another one. Yeah.
Because
one
of the reasons why Dortch's snaps played went down so much. I mean, to your point, the big difference was they were winning versus they were losing.
Mm-hmm.
They went a lot of heavy, like 12 personnel. So they're going out there with double tight ends. And that's actually where they were able to scheme up a lot of their big plays.
I didn't know Wilson's considerably cheaper. He's only 4,100 too. That's a
right.
good call.
And again, you look at the snaps played last week. Harrison 46, Wilson 45, Dortch 23. So if they go heavy, Wilson's the guy who's staying out there. So if that's going to be a more consistent part of this offense, and again, we don't know because, like you said,
it's on 2 weeks. Yeah.
If they end up trailing the Lions early on, yeah, I think you're going to want Greg Dortch out there.
Yeah.
But if they're able to keep this like one score or they're winning most of the game,
they're probably going to try to run the ball and right. Again,
I mean, that's one of my favorite things about this game is there's so many ways for it to play out. Both these teams love to run the ball.
Yep.
And both these teams have explosive passing offenses in part because they're so successful running the ball.
And great in play action. Yep.
So yeah, Michael Wilson, though, the fact that he is the guy when it's only 2 wideouts, he's stayed out there in all but one snap with Marvin Harrison. And I don't have it in front of me. I think there's a reasonable chance on whatever that play was, they only had one wide receiver out there, and it was Marvin Harrison.
Yep.
So, yeah, Michael Wilson's a guy that I'm also keeping an eye on.
I love it. So my favorite play this week, by far, will be rostered even more than his teammate, Jordan Mason, George Kittle, 5,700 at the Rams.
You go on your spiel, man, because you've already sold me on this. I am all in on this play now, too, entirely because of you.
I'm a big believer in recent history. You guys know that. I am a nerd. I will go back and look at every freaking game stat line from now into eternity. I'll look up who missed what games. And if recent history tells us, it's going to be Kittle. So Debo in 2022, he missed 4 games. Kittle averaged 20.12 points per game. He scored at least 13 in every one of those games. 2023, Debo missed 2 games. Kittle averaged 18.45 points. He scored at least 12 points in each of those 2 games. And then after week 6 last year, Debo only played in 2 games in the regular season that he did not eclipse 70%, which is his normal number. Like if he's healthy, he's going to play like 80% of snaps. In those 2 games, Kittle averaged 19.35 points per game on DK. By the way, in those 8 games, Kittle had 4 games of 24 points or more, 7 touchdowns, and the Rams are currently 31st on DK versus tight ends. So, and they have not exactly played a murderer's row of tight ends. Like I know McBride's really good. I mean, to be honest, like Laporta did nothing against them week 1. So I think that Kittle, this is what the Niners do, is they are going to go to Kittle. Like he is the answer for Debo. It's what's so frustrating about if you're a season long and you have George Kittle is him and Debo are so similar in so many ways. You know, their real ability is yardage after the catch because they're just monsters to bring down. But Kittle's big thing is he just doesn't get targeted because you got to target Ayuk. And what I really like about it right now, there's no CMC, who normally that is a big part of the passing game, right? When Debo's out, is you got to get the ball to CMC. There's no CMC. They are not throwing the ball to Jordan Mason. He is purely a runner. That's great for Kittle. I don't even hate Jawan Jennings and like MMEs this week, but George Kittle, 5,700, by far my favorite play this week in DraftKings cash games.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, and I put a little bit less stock in PFF's advantage for tight ends than I do the one with wide receiver corners, just because I think it's kind of harder to, especially when we're talking about top tight ends, it can be harder to guess exactly how a team will defend a top tight end
or how they line up. Like some tight ends line up outside, inside, like who knows?
But so far as it goes, the number one tight end advantage this week is George Kittle.
Hello.
So there really isn't a lot. I don't really think there's much of an argument to be like, don't go with George Kittle. Outside of go with Brock Bowers.
Hello.
I'm guessing,
let's do it,
guessing
Joe.
that is your double tight end play.
You're damn right it is.
It has to be those two. And considering the price point, I think I'm joining you on that because, I mean, Brock Bowers, 17 targets through 2 weeks. Like,
what's insane is he's not even playing that much. Like 73% of snaps, running routes on 67% of them, and he's seeing almost a 24% target rate, which I tried to tell people, the dude is uncoverable. Like, you put a safety or corner on him, forget about it. And you put a linebacker on him, if Gardner can start pushing the ball down the field with Brock, now you're really going to be cooking with peanut oil. Again, that 23.9. What I love is he ain't even scored a touchdown yet, but he's putting up these big gains, 15 receptions, 56 yards. Among tight ends, he is top 5 right now in targets, air yard share, receptions, receiving yards, fantasy points per game, yards per target, yards per attempt, true catch rate, juke rate, fantasy points per route. And despite playing New Orleans and the Chargers, not exactly a murderer's row of tight ends, the Panthers have allowed 11 receptions for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns through 2 games. Now, Devontae Adams is seeing only a slightly higher target rate at 3%. I will say, now this Panthers team runs cover 3 at an absurd rate. Like, they are actually now challenging the Vikings. I think the Vikings run it the Colts. The Colts run it like 57% of the time. Panthers run it like 55% of the time. And typically it is Adams who feasts versus that. But where is the weakness of a cover 3? The middle of the field. So, again, because I'm a nerd and this is the kind of stuff I like to do, I went back and watched the all 22s. By the way, if you've not got NFL Plus for $14 a week, you get Red Zone. You get access to every game after it's played, including all 22s. It's the best deal there is right now. 9 of Brock's 15 receptions. Guess where they've came? The middle of the field. 5,400. I don't care how good Devontae Adams has been typically against cover 3. This dude, like I said, all summer is a freaking unicorn, a one of one. And I'm just so happy for him because people made fun of him because the way he looked without a shirt on. And they're like, oh, he went to a team with another tight end. I'm like, you guys just keep yakking. This guy on the field is a grown-ass man that was the best player on Georgia's offense. It's a true 18-year-old freshman. By the way, a team that won a national title. So very high for Brock Bowers. And I just love you get those 2 guys for, what would that be? 54 and what is it? 57, 11, what is that? 11-1, right? $11,100. I'm getting both of those guys in my lineup. Let's freaking go.
Well, let's combine that with our Dalton Deontay combo and then just have unlimited cash.
That's how I got in that lineup. I have A-Chain, Mason. I have Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams. And then I'm able to run the I'm sorry, who's playing Denver this week? Why am I blank? The Tampa Bay defense.
Tampa Bay.
Which you think Bo Nix is gonna, oh yeah, let's go. Ooh. Like, I really like that lineup. I know it's risky, obviously playing Dalton, but I don't need a lot out of Dalton and Johnson other than I just want the 3 times because I feel very good about the other guys in my lineup doing what they gotta do. But like literally the only other tight end I'll even give you is Janu Smith. I don't even think I'm going to play him if it's not MME because it's going to be a lot of Bowers and Kittle.
Yeah, I would be hard-pressed to say don't, do something besides find the money to get one of those 2 guys or, again, double up. But, yeah, I mean, we just saw why am I blanking on his name? The Patriots tight end.
Oh, Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry. I was going to say Hayden Hurst, and I was like, no, that's wrong because it's the other HH guy. But yeah,
it's like a fine wine, man. I keep knocking Hunter Henry, and he just keeps putting up monster games and seasons at the tight end position.
Yeah, we just saw what he did. The Seattle corners have been excellent this season. Mm-hmm. So granted, obviously you got Tyreek, you got Waddle, but yeah, it's not even going to be Tua out there. So you get the inexperienced quarterback, Skylar Thompson. What do we usually say with inexperienced quarterbacks? You just want to find your tight end. So I think there's a real Jonnu Smith upside here. Beyond that, probably, and this would be only if Njoku is out. Giants have not been great covering tight ends this year. So I think Jordan Akins, if you spent everywhere else, oh my God.
You okay?
No, I just slammed my computer with my hand because I'm.
Man, that's how fired up you are about. I was gonna say you're that fired up about Akins. Good for you, or Atkins.
I'm just saying, if you need that money for some reason,
right?
Because although maybe you're starting one of our other tight ends and you're like, I can't afford both. I've got to save $2,400.
Right.
If Njoku doesn't play, obviously just ignore him entirely if Njoku plays. But yeah, right. I'm with you. Play one of those two. They're worth the money this week. I mean, Brock Bowers has been worth the money every week so far.
He's such a beast. So we got a question from Jesse. First of all, Jesse, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, we talk about if it's not broke, don't fix it. I would be running with Olave and Shaheed until I see something different out of this Saints offense, because there is a very good chance one of them is going to go off and a decent chance they both are. So I if I had a little stronger option than Addison, especially returning from an injury, I might say maybe I don't want to be so invested, but you are invested in an offense that right now has scored points on 78% of their offensive possessions and scored touchdowns on 52% of them. What about you, Joe the Brain? What do you think?
I mean, against this Eagles defense, I'm not going to go away from them, because the Eagles have not been a defense that has really scared anyone in like a year, because they faded so hard down the stretch last year. And they're not that bad this year, but I mean, push came to shove. They needed a stop, and Kirk Cousins just became the greatest quarterback alive, it looked like. I mean, you guys got down there so fast.
It's one of the most shocking outcomes sporting wise in my lifetime, because I just didn't think, I thought the game was over. I mean, you saw what Kirk Cousins looked like last week, and it was just crazy. Like, once he hit that pass to Mooney, it was like he was a completely different quarterback the rest of the way. I think his confidence just got up, I'm assuming, but
I forget who the announcer was, but I thought they made a good point that sometimes you're in a new offense, 2-minute drill is just simplified.
That's a very good point.
And so you're just out there playing what you've done the last 20 years of your life.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, bro, I just added it up for you. 23 receptions to receivers the first 2 weeks. The Eagles have allowed for 385 yards.
Yeah, they're
and
don't go away.
And 4 touchdowns. I would run them both. They've given up, humongous plays, because you had, obviously, the Mooney had a 41-yarder. If I remember correctly, several Packers had big passing plays. Yeah, 70-yarder to Reed, 29-yarder to Kraft.
Was going off that whole game.
I kind of like playing them both. And then you can wait to see with Addison and make sure he's 100%. Let's touch defense real quickly, because, again, Joe, no surprise. We've gone an hour and a half, but that's what we do. And we have almost twice as many viewers as we did when we started, so maybe people like it when we just ramble on and give as much stats and stuff as we possibly can, because
word gets around and we're still here. So
we got to be ourselves, man. That's just who we are. We love this stuff. All right. Again, normally I always recommend go down, look at the bottom 4 or 5, pick one. I don't like freaking any of them. You can convince me on the Vikings potentially.
I was
going to say the Cardinals.
No, I would not touch the Cardinals. For me, it's either you're going, I don't trust Gardner Minshew, so fuck it, the Panthers.
Ooh.
Or you're saying, I do trust Brian Flores.
Joe, I did that week 1. That did not work out very well.
Yeah, no, I would take the Panthers over the Cardinals and the Rams. But yeah, considering they're the same price, as much confidence as I have in the Houston offense, and I have a lot.
And remember, Gardner threw on the Ravens last week, which is
he's also Gardner. Didn't he beat the Ravens last year when he was on the Colts? And then I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure like within the next 2 weeks he had some.
It's what I was saying though. He's got 2 elite pass catchers that he doesn't have to like try to do anything other than just get the ball to those guys and get the hell out of their way.
My main issue is just the lack of talent on Carolina's defense. It's like you trade away Brand Burns, Derek Brown's out for the season.
Appreciate that, sir.
What are you working with? So yeah, I don't love it either because I am so high on the Texans. But yeah, Brian Flores is a top 5 defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's got those guys. I like Purdy. I think they caught him talking to Flores after the game, just being like,
"Bro, they've had 5 or more."
He was like, "That was crazy." Games. He was like, "I didn't know what defense you guys were running."
Like 11 sacks. That's a way to get. And they've given up 23 points. I know that your Giants, not the greatest offense, but to hold San Francisco to 17 after the Jets is a pretty good defense. They just, bum rush those.
Yeah, that's making a statement when you shut down San Francisco.
What about the Bears versus Indy at 2,600? What about that one? Because the Bears defenses look pretty good too.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one I'm putting serious consideration into because I like Steichen. Richardson's going to have his on games, so there's always a chance it goes terribly. Richardson's going to have his off games. That Bears defense has been really, you go back to the Montez Sweat trade once they got some pass rush in there. That defense has been good. 4th on PFF in coverage grade this year, 3rd overall in defensive grade so far. So yeah, they've scored they had a blocked punt return against the Titans, so special teams was doing stuff.
They have the best punter, I think, in football. I interviewed Tory Taylor at the Senior Bowl. Caleb Williams made the mistake of saying that he's going to end up, what was it? It was like something about you're only going to punt like a handful of times this year. He's averaging like 9 punts a game, but Tory Taylor is the kind of guy that can flip a field on a moment's notice. He's a gigantic man. And that only helps their defense, right? Because that's always kind of flipping field position for you. Tampa's, though, the team for me. If you can spend up, which, again, I can with that lineup that I have, you would let's see. Defenses facing Denver finished no worse than 9th and have scored at least 9 points each of the first 2 weeks. They've allowed 4 sacks, and this is the big one, turned the ball over 5 times. I watched Bo Nix play Georgia and Alabama numerous times where you had these, I think, very smart defensive-minded coaches going against Bo Nix, recognizing his limitations. Bo Nix never threw a passing touchdown in his 5 career games versus Georgia and Alabama and turned the ball over 9 times. I think that he is in for a long day versus Tampa. It would be one thing if this was at Denver. It's not. It's in Tampa. I love Tampa, 3,300.
I mean, yeah, his turnover-worthy play rate, 4.2%. That's not a good number in case people don't know. 5.9% last week against Seattle, who's another very good, very well-coached defense.
Got worse right after there was tape on him, which is not a good sign. Like, you had your first game, a little more tape. Oh, I'm telling you, because he played a much better defense week 1.
And again, you're talking – well, if we're talking best defensive coordinators in the NFL – Todd Bowles is up there.
Oh, yeah.
And you give that guy a rookie quarterback. I want no part of it as a Broncos, if I'm a Broncos fan, as a DFS person. Yeah, I'm trying to find the money to get to the 3,000. Well, again, I'll take the 2,600 if I need to. I'll bet against the Colts.
Yeah, I do like the Bears. I like that.
But man, Tampa Bay is a top 5 play overall. Like if there was no price points.
Yep.
So yeah, the fact we can give them a 3K, 100% lock them in if you can.
All right, real quickly, let me just go over the guys we talked about in case again, we appreciate all 195 people that are watching at this moment. So Murray is the most expensive guy we recommended. We both said we'd probably, I think in cash, I'm not gonna do it. I just think it's risky. It's a lot of money. But you got Baker 6,300. I think that's a great call. We both like kind of that Darnold Geno range at 55, 5,600. And then again, Dalton, if you want to get crazy like your boy KC, 4,800. Again, all I'm asking for is 14.2 points. Running backs, I am just basically on 3 guys. It's A-Chain, Mason, and Pollard. You gave obviously J.K. Dobbins, which is great. We did mention Charbonnet. You mentioned Ford. I like those plays as well. The wide receivers, we're looking at Devontae. And again, kind of stay in that 7,000-6,000 range because I think you can get a lot of value there this week where people are going to overspend for those top guys. You got Devontae Smith, DJ Moore. We talked about Nico at that 7,300 range, Jamison Williams. And then, the cheaper guys, JSN, Shaheed, Deontay Johnson. We did talk about Michael Wilson, Dortch. Pay attention to Josh Downs if he's coming back. And Jordan Whittington is an interesting guy for me just with the situation. And then the tight ends, it's Kittles or Bowers or bust. Yep. They're so cheap. Yeah,
just do it.
And they're basically number one targets. If you look at their target rate, again, that was the one thing I meant to mention. Kittle's target rate in games Debo has not played in those is right around 24%, which is much higher than his any year target rate average in San Francisco. So, and then the defenses, again, we really like Chicago and Tampa. We appreciate you guys being here. There's so much amazing stuff on Fantasy Six Pack. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are not already. Be sure to follow Fantasy Six Pack on all social media platforms. Follow my boy Joe Matz on Twitter. He is not like me whoring himself out every opportunity he gets going, follow me at Keith Flemming.
They're getting more info from you. You're a much more active Twitter person. So I just overstate.
I want people following you. If nothing else, because they're going to get some great TV and movie reviews occasionally, which I always love, or a retweet. He's also one of those retweeters. Joe will retweet a lot of stuff. He's not going to actually make tweets.
That's true. I will.
And it's a lot of good information.
Follow me, maybe I'll follow you, and then I'll start retweeting you. So there you go.
Follow me, I'll
help each other.
You. And we got some good stuff still coming this weekend. If you are not hanging out on Sunday mornings, the Sunday Social Show is amazing. Our boy Alan, aka Actively Lazy, Mr. Big Time at ESPN Richmond, comes on for 15 minutes, does his gambling predictions. Alan is super smart at that. JJ, Dylan, and the boys doing your start sit questions, which to me is like one of the best hours of like football content. You can get those guys are so sharp. Ask them any start sit question you can. They get to it's amazing how many they get to and actually back it up. And then me and Detroit Beastie, the DFS legend, Chris Robin, we close you out from 12 to 1. I cover the cash side. Chris covers the MME. Last week was good, not great. I was a little disappointed. Chris was on fire with some of his plays. He mentioned Card. He mentioned a lot of people. Cooper Kupp was just a knife to the heart.
He was on the Bengals guy, right?
Yes. Oh, Yoshi. Yeah.
I put into one of my lineups. It's like, oh, wow.
Him and Kevin Tompkins both were all over Yoshi. And then also I will have an article up Friday where I give you my 3 favorite DFS stacks. It's a single stack, a double stack, and a game stack, and then my 5 favorite values under 4,900 because we have pivoted in the past. Me and Joe would do basically an expensive, median, and value play for DraftKings cash, and we just feel like let's just talk the cash game slate out. And then if you listen to me Sunday, I'm going to converse with Joe before then. I taper that down a ton. I believe that on Sunday I gave a total version. Yeah, I think I gave 14 plays on Sunday. So it's basically giving you 1 or 2 options at each position. But I love seeing 200 people watching us goobers right now. This is our 4th year of me and Joe doing this. We truly enjoy each other's friendship, and we are just people that love fantasy, DFS, and we could talk stats, this stuff all day. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. As you saw, we answer any questions in the chat. You can hit us up on DM. You can join the Fantasy Six Pack Discord and hit us. There's a million ways to reach out. I promise you we will respond. I love helping people with their fantasy football lineups. Just don't murder me when I give you some bad calls because they're going to happen from time to time. But I'm happy to back it up. As me and Joe have always said, our disclaimer is we can't guarantee our plays will be right, but we can guarantee they will be backed with data, reason, and logic. So we appreciate all of you guys. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And how about them Atlanta Falcons, Joe Matz? We'll see you guys soon.